Great, so we are recording, and thanks for joining us tonight. Um, this meeting, I wanted to have this meeting as an opportunity for you all to give some feedback and discuss any sections of the draft, the preliminary draft of the region plan. We're starting to see it come together, but as you noted, there's a lot of work still to do and a lot of cleanup. So it's a work in progress, but this is where we're at, and I thought it was a good time to get you all to give us your thoughts. So with that, Joel, I will let you do the intro kind of stuff, and I need to pull up the agenda myself.
Sure, that's fine. So I did find the agenda. Does anybody have any questions about or changes to the agenda for tonight? Hearing none, does anybody have a motion to?
The one thing I would point out is that we have this time moved public comments back to the end of the meeting, since we wanted them at the beginning while we were talking about zoning changes, but we moved them back to the end for this meeting, if everybody's okay with that.
If anyone has an issue, otherwise, motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor of approving the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting? Have any changes to or comments on those minutes from last month? Very good. Okay, if no comments, anyone want a motion to approve the minutes? A motion? You don't have to second just because I look at you. That's fine. All in favor of approving the minutes of last month?
Aye.
I opposed? Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. As Patrick said, we'll have public comment at the end of the night. I don't feel the need to reread all the things I normally read, because I think we're all well aware of the purpose of the group, and we're getting close to the end here. So I appreciate everyone providing comments to Patrick and the staff about the draft plan, and I look forward to the discussion tonight, as well as the public comment period. If anyone's online to join us, public comment will be at the end tonight. And with that, I'll hand it over to staff to get us going.
Okay, thanks. So this is our agenda tonight. We just went through the welcome and introduction. Then what I want to do is I want to give a very brief overview of the region plan. This is not as much for you all, since you all have seen it. This is more, for the public record, just kind of a walkthrough of how it's organized and that kind of thing. That'll be very brief. And then I want to dive into a couple of areas that I want to get some of your thoughts on. We've gotten some comments from a few folks. I want to go over a few things, and then any other areas that you all want to bring up and maybe discuss or make some recommended, tweaks or whatever. We can talk about those as well. So for tonight, yes, and then public comments at the end, and then we'll close and we'll have our next steps. So this is where we are in the process. We're almost at the very end. So looking at the draft plan, I did send out the doodle poll, and I think I already emailed you all that our final meeting and our wrap up will happen on August 12th. So that will be when we go over the public comments that we get on the preliminary draft zoning recommendations. So we'll talk about those with you. There may be a handful of new zoning applications that come through during that process. So we'll bring those to you as well. As in the past, we'll send all of that out to you ahead of time. And then if there are any, however it goes tonight with regard to the plan, if there are any major things that we want to talk about, and then wrap up the plan before sending all of it to the Planning Advisory Board, we will take care of that on August 12th. So that's the plan for that date. Are there any other questions? I thought I had I did have a couple of announcements. I guess I had it at the end of this, but I'll go ahead and say now, with regard to the draft zoning map, we have, our GIS folks are working with our our OIT folks to get that out, starting on Monday, I believe, right? Is the day that is intended to go public. There are a few snafus going on behind the scenes, but I think that that's gonna be worked out. So that should launch, on Monday. And I was gonna put on your radar too, that we have two public input, drop-in sessions scheduled at Baldwin Hall. I'm trying to pull up the date on those. I'll repeat this at the end. But if you could share with your networks, okay, so the public review of the preliminary zoning is gonna be June 16th through July 14th. So for about a month, that'll be out for public review and we'll be collecting comments. And then we have two public drop-ins, one, both at Baldwin Hall, one June 24th, that'll be 12 noon to 4 p.m. And then Thursday, July 10th, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. This will all be on our website. It might be there now, I'm not sure, but we'll be advertising that. We'll be inviting the council people that are over the region, primarily one of them, to those. So anyway, the idea is that anybody could drop in at any time and be able to talk to staff to understand what the draft zoning map has and ask any questions and such. There won't be a formal presentation. A lot of times people show up and sit down and expect a presentation. That's not the format. It's kind of an open house, come and go sort of thing. So if you could help get the word out about that, I would appreciate it. And in terms of any introductory comments, that's what I had. So I'm going to launch into the preliminary draft now. And again, this is just a quick walkthrough. It's more for the public, just to understand and go over how it's organized and that kind of thing. I may mention a few of the comments that we've received and the ways that we may try to incorporate some of those, but I'm going to save some of the more substantive comments and things that I think we need to talk about for the end of this. So let's get started.
Patrick, does this include the survey results from that final survey?
Not yet. We still, so that's the caveat, or one of the caveats, is that will need to come through, and we may tweak some of the strategies based on more feedback we get from that. So we're still working to summarize that. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it. So the overall organization of the region plan is common to all of the region plans, all 9 of them, and it's based on the organization of Plan 2040. We have the 4 main topic areas: natural environment, built environment, healthy communities, and healthy economy. That's kind of the bulk of the text of our plans. Looked through this draft. You should see something like this in the table of contents, but then I noticed just yesterday the table of contents is very screwed up. So that's one of the edits that will need to be worked through. Again, work in progress. And also, we are hoping to have that the final draft will have more images and be a little bit more graphic. So if you all have any good images that you think would help represent anything, please feel free to submit them to us. We can.
Were these all drafted? It just seemed like only certain parts were kind of, and it was like to be put in, to be
Yeah,
put in.
all the maps are lacking at this point. I'll go through that as we talk. Yes, there are
I
gaps
think-
right now.
What, I know that you're gonna talk, one of my general comments was just, like, our general vision was all parks and environment, and so if more images like that could be in there.
I completely agree. Yeah. So if you have some, feel free to send them in.
Maybe the county fair or a care production on this.
Yeah, I just.
Do you have any?
I would.
Send some.
Because I was a leader for 12 years, I was.
Send some, that'd be, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I appreciate it.
Some pictures like this. Okay.
So the plan starts off with an introduction that has the background, this purpose of the plan. These are kind of common to all of the plans. There's not a lot of difference. An equity statement. And then we do have the specific Region 6 vision, and I do want to kind of revisit that at the end of our conversation here. We will also have highlights of public input that we want to add in once we've got those results of the final questionnaire that's out now. So again, that's one of the pieces to be built, finalized still. And then existing conditions, this includes a demographic snapshot and our community descriptions. And I want to say a word about what those community descriptions is about. Just a narrative description of the area's overall character. And this is really important for, I mean, looking at it from our perspective as long-range planners. When we review development projects that are proposed in a particular region, a lot of times we look for text that we can kind of lean on and cite as in our comments in response to our reviews of these development proposals. So that was, with that in mind, that was kind of how we drafted those community descriptions to kind of help capture what should the communities look like, and anything that does come in or changes that happen, what is the vision for the area that needs to be sort of considered, needs to be consistent with. So that was how that was drafted. We did get one comment from one of you all that recommended defining the term low density, and we can add a footnote in to help explain what that is and make it a little bit easier as people read through that. The natural environment section. So this is the first of the 4 main chapters. You all will have reviewed most of this text in our background documents as we've gone through this process. So there's not a whole lot that is really new here. And again, the maps are being finalized by our GIS staff. There have been some other priorities in getting the preliminary zoning maps ready for public input. And the recent other 3 regions that have been recently adopted, getting those out and ready for putting on the web. So that's one of the pieces to be to come still. The built environment chapter, this is the largest chapter of the plan, which makes sense because land use is central to this plan. So we deal with housing, holding capacity. There is a very tailored statement about what missing middle is. That's something that is present in all the region plans, but we completely redrafted it for Region 6 because I think missing middle in Region 6 does not look like and should not look like what it would in some of the other regions. There's kind of a more limited scope of what that should be. We get into our development policy areas and planned land use maps. And then our community hubs description, and this was one of the pieces that I asked you all to really take a look at. I did get a few comments on that, and I'll revisit that after I go through this presentation. Transportation and then cultural resources is also a part of this. And you all may have noticed there's a note about a potential expansion of the Roots and Tides scenic byway. That's not something that we directly discussed as a group, but it is something that the director of tourism development for the Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel County had approached us with this idea of expanding the Roots and Tides scenic byway through both Region 4 and Region 6. And we thought it was a good opportunity to sort of endorse that as kind of another layer of policy statement about the character of the region, and particularly along General's Highway and Millersville Road. So I'll just kind of highlight that as a small inset that's highlighted in the plan. The healthy communities and healthy economies chapters, these are both pretty small, a little bit shorter owing to fewer community facilities other than passive parks and the smaller economic footprint of the region. But most of the text, you would have seen this previously as well. The implementation section, this is a pretty important section, provides examples of how a couple of the strategies that are within this plan, how those get adopted. That's a key question that we've gotten in prior rounds, is how do these strategies get adopted and what happens when they don't? So we tried to kind of go through some of the scenarios that can lead to a strategy being implemented, or some of the barriers that may in fact keep a particular strategy from being implemented. So that's described in some detail. And then we have the implementation matrix that gathers all of our strategies and assigns a time frame to those. This is this is the Region 6 one. So a timeframe for anticipated implementation, and then the various performance metrics that we will be measuring as we go forward and reporting back out on how we're doing, actually implementing the strategies of this plan. And just a reminder, these amend and add to the strategies from Plan 2040. So all of them, and all of the region plans do. So all of them become amendments to the countywide general development plan.
I have a comment on that, Penny, for just reading it now. It should be clear that stormwater practices should, the way that reads is you should do new development so you can put in more stormwater. And I think there's a difference when you're saying we need more opportunities for stormwater. If you have land undeveloped, you're going to develop it and be required to put in stormwater. That's different than you're doing restoration and there's impervious that you're restoring stormwater for. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like my
Sounds like you're
skin,
drawing-
I'm gonna cut it and then put Band-Aids on. Oh, you didn't have any Band-Aids before, now you do. That's different than you're already bleeding and putting Band-Aid on. That's what I think they're
You're drawing a
trying to
difference
say.
between the stormwater management and stream restoration
No,
there.
no, I'm either one. I'm saying there's a really big emphasis on looking for opportunities for stormwater management. And I'm saying a wooded lot along Route 3 isn't an opportunity for stormwater management. An impervious parking lot where they're gonna retrofit it and put in a stormwater, fine, but it really should say stormwater and stream restoration and for redevelopment here, you know. Saying in Java's Branch and Bacon Ridge, and then, you know, you can go and do a new commercial thing, but you're like, oh, we added stormwater. Well, you still added a lot of impervious surface to do that. I just felt like it was a really big emphasis on stormwater, maybe just because I'm in stormwater, but I was like, this is just kind of misleading a little
Does
bit.
it say anything about development, either of those?
It doesn't say redevelopment or develop, it just says number of practices. So to me, that's not really what is environmental. It's just-
Okay,
Or you could just say reducing impervious, you know, reducing the amount of untreated impervious acres. That could be a way.
okay. Got it, thank you. And then following the implementation chapter, which is the last main chapter, we get into the appendices, and these are actually pretty important too. These will have our tables of recommended changes, both planned land use and policy area changes. And those are still in progress. So I think the example that we had was from maybe Region 3 or somewhere else. In what you saw, but we're working to format get those together. And then a little more description of our public outreach process and metrics and numbers on that. And all of that is still to come because we're still in the process of public outreach. So with that, that was just a quick overview of the organization of the plan. We did get, like I said, some comments from some of you, and I appreciate that. A couple of things I do want to go over. I'm going to bring up a couple of things, and then if there are other areas that you all want to bring up for discussion, please feel free. But the first one I want to kind of retouch on or revisit is getting into the community descriptions. So within the community descriptions, as was done in other regions, that was where we placed our potential expansions or contractions of the changes to the region boundary. And I wanted to bring that up again and go ahead, because there was some discussion from folks that I got comments on from that. So I would like to kind of revisit these and actually confirm or get a vote from the SAC whether or not this is something that the SAC supports or not. And that would be good information going forward. So if y'all are okay with that, I'd like to kind of revisit these. And there were 4 main areas where there were recommended changes, where we recommend change to the region boundary. And the first is in the southern part of the region. I mentioned over here off of Housley Road, so across from Safeway and Dick's Sporting Goods, there's the existing neighborhood Annapolis Ridge that is in Region 6. We had recommended bring that into Region 7 just because they access Region 7. We had some discussion about that. I thought that there was some consensus among the committee about that. How do we feel about that? Can I get a thumbs up or thumbs down on this as a recommended change to the region boundary?
If I remember correctly, I think one of the things that we talked about was that they're gonna be impacted far more by decisions in Region 7 than they are by decisions in Region 6. And that it would make sense that that they be represented by a place that's going to actually impact.
So is red is north, okay, oh, I see, there's 6, and then 7.
Yeah, and the red boundary is missing, but it follows this line here. So that's the current region boundary. And this is the Pearl Town Center here, so it abuts this neighborhood. The idea would not be to put this in the Pearl Town Center, but it would simply put it in Region 7. So how do we feel about that as a committee?
Still got a thumbs up.
I'm in favor.
We have consensus?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm indifferent to that one, I don't like the other one.
Okay. All right, so we do have support for that one. The next one is just around the corner from it. So if you continue around Housley Road, you come out to Bestgate Road here, General's Highway. We talked about these 4 properties here. They had put in a request for a change to town center zoning. The committee did not come to a consensus recommendation on that zoning question. I kind of took that to also be no consensus at the time on this as a change to the region boundary. But I would appreciate clarification on this.
So the planning and zoning recommendation for the upzoning, and I suppose the boundary was because when the general development plan was adopted, these were approved to be town center. However,
No, the general development plan was adopted with these,
the plan.
no,
Oh, okay.
not at that time. Following the general development plan had these in Region 6 and had these as, I think there are 2 at this point. The Pearl Town Center master plan was adopted soon after was updated after the adoption of the general development plan. At the very tail end of that process, when the Pearl Town Center master plan was at council amended the town center master plan to bring these 4 properties into the Pearl Town Center. So they are now currently subject to the Pearl Town Center zoning overlay that gives them higher density allowances and such, and places them fully within the Pearl Town Center
County Council already made that.
with the adoption of the Pearl Town Center.
So all you're asking us to do is actually move them from Region 6.
This is why we recommend.
Okay.
Was there public input into that council decision? Did it go against? I've heard from my people that it went against, if we all said no, they still did it. Is that how that happened, the overlay? Was there any public?
There was it was a public hearing. Full action. Off the top of my head, I don't recall. I do recall that there was a little bit of concern about, there was, at the time, there was a line here that kept this front part of this parcel out of the Pearl Town Center, and there was a little bit of, I think I got one comment about that, or a few comments about that, but, I don't recall much about these 4.
I still am confused, I'm sorry. So there was the general development plan, that still had the planned land use as
Yes.
residential zoning was,
Mhm.
then would be R2. Then the town center overlay came out. Is that outside of the general development
Yes,
plan? Is
Yeah.
that similar to the Crownsville Mass Hospital?
it's one of the three, so it's more akin to the Odenton Town Center Master Plan.
Okay. Was there any public input into the development of the parole center plan? Okay.
Yes,
I would be curious to know what the public opinion of that change was, and if council went against public.
no, it wasn't something that was discussed in our public process during the development of the Pearl Town Center plan because it came forward during council.
So it had no public input. And if there was a public input during the general development plan, if, to be consistent with that, that did have public input, you would leave these alone, as residential, but.
And it'll go on to receive public comment after this process, right? The next steps for whatever we
You will.
decide on this.
You
I
will,
think as it stands, those 4 properties are town center and they're owned by the same entity that owns all the properties on the corner. So right now they're split between Annapolis's region and our region. It does make sense to keep all the properties in Annapolis Town Center in the Annapolis region. And all the adjacent properties owned by the same entity in the same region, otherwise they're split.
don't they have to be, doesn't the zoning have to be changed officially before they're town center? They're not town center yet.
No, but we aren't talking about anything other than moving them from 6 to 7.
So, yeah, this is.
That we aren't talking about zoning, we aren't talking about anything other than having
This is a
region
creep.
7.
This is a creep. They want, the only reason to move it is because it's a town, they want to make it a town center. There's no reason to make it a town center because the traffic is terrible, the mall is empty, becoming empty, and could easily do whatever you wanted. There's no reason to make the overlay of the town center expand there.
But I'm sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but Region 7 is more than the town center. All we're talking about is moving them into Region 7.
But there's no reason to move them into Region 7 unless they become a town center.
They're adjacent to Region 7
They're
now. The
adjacent to
council
Region
has
7.
already moved them into Region 7.
No,
Did-
Can-
They
They're-
appropriate.
they're all-
Them into the town, into
Into
the
the
town
Right,
center
okay,
planning
hold
district,
on,
right? But it's still zoned residential and it's
Right.
still in, so
So they're-
the steps they have to go through are get the properties into the town center. Get the properties
Which is
into
done.
Region 7, which is what we're talking about now,
Mhm.
and then get the properties rezoned. And then,
They don't
Develop.
have to move the properties to Region 7 to go to Region.
No,
right, but that is the
They could
the
do that
steps that
next
we're in.
time after it already is a town center. Right
Right,
now.
because
It's-
it's
it
a
already-
it's a fait accompli at that
but
point, or it
yeah,
seems
I need to be clear though, you're talking about them becoming town center as if that's a future thing. They are within the Pearl Town Center currently, that
They're
was,
overlay.
that was done with the adoption of the Pearl Town Center master plan. The master plan was amended. And they are now within the Pearl Town Center, and what that means is you have your base zoning, which for them currently today is R2 zoning. They put in a change for to change that zoning to town center zoning. Whether that change is ultimately adopted by council or not at the end of this region plan process, they already have what's called a zoning overlay that applies all of the Pearl Town Center allowances and provisions and additional requirements onto all of the properties and whatever base zoning exists on all the properties that are within the Pearl Town Center. So currently they have a number of additional allowances and additional requirements that are defined within the Pearl Town Center overlay section of our code that
So what you're saying
outlines
is-
all of those.
Anytime the council wants to do an overlay, they can basically forego this entire process here that we're doing. This
Not,
community.
no,
input-
it's not, no,
Yeah.
no, not anytime, but it is, it was done through the process of the update of the Pearl Town Center Master Plan, which updated the provisions of the Pearl Town Center zoning overlays. That,
Could you put the Parole Town Center master plan in our reading materials if it's not already there?
yeah, I can do that.
And Pearl Town Center extends to where we are right now in this building, right? The Pearl
Yeah.
Town Center goes to, I don't know if it includes this building, but it extends to where we are.
It
So
does.
it's not just the mall or.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean,
our-
our region is a buffer between Annapolis
Yeah,
and Odin.
but
To
it,
me, this is shifting, it's creeping up, and I just,
but what Patrick said about their different zonings within the town center. Where we are here isn't super developed. I mean, we're kind of on the edge of it, just like we're on the edge of the Pearl Town Center. So, you know, they're on the edge of the Pearl Town Center too. It's not all 15-story home buildings. It's based on what's all the other requirements of the town center, you know?
I just.
It's not like
I'm
free range to do
I'm
whatever.
curious, from your perspective, why, what is the argument to actually leave it in Region 6? I mean, what's the point of leaving it in Region 6 if it's already part of something that is?
Well,
in
my
Region
point
7?
it's mistakenly in the Parole Town Center overlay. I don't think it had the proper public input. It's not in the current general development plan as such. It's taking from Region 6. It's a shrinking of our buffer. The traffic doesn't support it. There's the Waterworks Park where they're doing stream restorations right in back of those parcels, and where now you're gonna increase all the impervious surface up, you know, it's like you're putting a Band-Aid and cutting with the other hand. And just, I don't think we need that growth there when the mall is nearly vacant. I mean, not nearly, but there's plenty of space there to do more intensive.
They're not-
So
they're not
basically
supposed to put
you,
in retail though, are they, Patrick? What all can they do in the town center zoning?
I'm sorry,
They're not compelled to put in retail there if they're in under the town center zoning.
no, they're
They
not.
can do it right.
Yeah, it could be a variety of.
but your argument to not approve this is because you want to make sure that Region 6 can say no to development there.
I think it should stay
that- is that-
R2. I think it should stay residential as it
And
is.
your way of doing that is making sure it stays in Region 6 and that we can control that.
Yeah, stays residential R2, like it should, the feel of it is not Region 7 to me. I mean, I pull up my car to that intersection and the thermometer in my car goes up 5 degrees. Like, it's like, oh, I'm in Annapolis now. I mean, and the traffic there. I mean,
But following the same logic, if you want to keep it in Region 6 so that you can, so that the zoning doesn't change, so it remains what it is now. If it is already part of the Pearl Town Center overlay, is that really realistic to expect that in the next 2 or 3 years, that if it's part of the town overlay already, that even if it's part of Region 6, it's still, it's gonna stop
I'm
it from
still
being
fighting
developed?
for it. I don't think it should be in the Parole Center overlay.
But that's already happened.
Well, it's not zoning though. It's not law. It's not done yet.
Does the council, who decides that moves, who has the stamp that says that is now Region 7?
Oh, ultimately the council.
The council does. And who decides what that's zoned as ultimately? The council, right? So
Yes, and they already decided that the town center
so
zone
they've
overlay.
on the 3 steps that I outlined, the council has already showed that
Yes.
they're gonna do step 1.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
That
we're the
means that-
public though.
sure, I totally get
Did they
you.
have any public input when they made that decision? Like, I mean, they're asking here for our input. I wasn't a part of that. I didn't even, I mean, I sort of ancillarily heard some complaints, and since then I've heard things that said the citizens council voted this way, then the staff still recommended this way, and the council still, I mean, I've just heard that the process for it was not transparent and was not clear. So I don't know what it was, but and I mean, have you sat at Bestgate Road there? I mean, no matter what you put there, how is that, that is a huge traffic problem.
I think the difference is if they build homes there, the people who live there can walk to the mall, can walk to the Safeway, can walk to wherever. Where the people further up Giles Highway can't. If they build retail there, the people who live in the apartments can walk to the retail.
Why can't they
instead.
build apartments at the mall?
They will.
They are
They
building
will.
apartments,
That's fine, like, that's
but
what they should.
it's not a case of one or the other.
Yeah.
And I don't know that apartments is what they're building there, but whatever they build there, it's gonna have sidewalks and people can walk there instead of getting in a car.
And now when that's town center and we do this again, you see the next little bit of woods, it's just gonna
That's
keep
not-
going.
Yeah, but they
It's a
can't,
county
they can't
water
replace the
tower.
water tower.
And that's
At
my
this
neighborhood
point, the
north of
water
Watertown,
tower-
and that's not the way
Yeah.
anywhere. So I don't mind the creek.
Completely built out.
I think it's
Well,
fine.
it's up to you
I'm
guys.
perfectly happy to vote to approve the rezoning and the move to Region 7, but I don't know, that's not all in front of us right now. But do you need a vote on that, Patrick? or-
Okay, just a quick question, for clarification, Patrick. So the benefit of just recommending, moving formally, those properties into Region 7, what is the benefit of making a recommendation? Just for the sake of documentation.
It's for the, it's to bring all of the properties that are within the Pearl Town Center into one region. So
Similar to the one on the left, so the
Right.
Region 7 people make the decisions about everything that's in the Pearl Town Center rather than everything in the Pearl Town Center except 4 acres.
Yeah, which includes, I mean, I know that it's the same owner, but at the end, the residents of those apartments will definitely have a saying about whether or not that next to them is going to be developed or not.
That's true.
And the homes, on the other side, in front of Home Depot, not in front of Home Depot, Safeway also will have definitely a saying, which is going to be zone 7, correct? So I think that at the end, it will be good for record, just like what you were saying, Joel, just to make a decision, make our comments, if there are some discrepancies, make them, leave them in documented, like what, Jasmine mentioned, because at the end, again, we are just making recommendations and just making our voice heard in paper. And then I think that this is a great opportunity to encourage public, once this plan goes for public comment, attend the open houses and really talk about it. Because I think that that's the challenge is like, yes, council will make the final decision, but if they probably got 2 comments, 3 comments, again, I don't know the entire process. This is a time where I think this is a very healthy conversation, but also definitely encourage, and what you mentioned, Patrick, to encourage our networks to go and really read this, review it, know, and if you don't like it, speak about it. That would be my.
And on this one, this will be of course, a zoning change application that's gonna be called out on the map that goes out on Monday, so we're going to be getting some comments. And that reminds me, I think you had the idea, last time for us to look into, can we put these potential boundary changes, out when we put the zoning changes out? We talked to our GIS folks, right now, they're not gonna be able to incorporate that into this, so, it's really gonna be once the draft plan goes out that we would get public comment, which is why I wanted to have this discussion and get some clarity with you all.
I mean, I guess, is there
Before-
really any reason to re-vote? We already voted, we have less people than when we voted before, there's different opinions about it, so, I mean, can it just be recorded as no consensus as it is, because
Well,
It's not a
that's
clear-
what that's why I'm asking. I wanna know, how does this committee feel about this change of the region boundary? We talked about the one on the left. I think there was consensus in support of that.
No, I
On the
understand
right.
what you're saying, Jess.
How do we
It's just,
feel about
I'm
this?
thinking that the water tower property across the street is all developed. The water tower property and that development is a great barrier. If the development isn't going to go farther than those properties right there. Well, if you look at the map, you've got the water tower and you've got a
what
development
about the
already
senior
there.
living center? It's already coming up, it comes up all the time.
Yes, but
Any-
that's all
any
still,
inch you give, they'll
that's
take
all
them
still in Region 6.
What is the, like, does this whole plan in general, like, follow the 2040? Sort of part of
It
like,
amends that.
but like, the task is like to do smart growth and like, do we do enough of that in here? Or are we like against everything? Just conceptually, or is that normal? Like, was the task to figure out how to incorporate affordable housing and higher density and accommodate growth in a smart way? Or,
It's a good question, and I have a little bit of a different perspective because I worked on Region 7 and then Region 3, and now I'm on Region 6. I see Region 6 as completely different from the former two. When we did Region 7, we focused, I mean, the targeted area for growth within Region 7 was the Pearl Town Center area. That was where growth was to be absorbed. And the rest of Region 7, there were very few changes. Region 3 had, which is Glen Burnie and the Severn area. So there were a lot more changes in that area, particularly around Glen Burnie. We had light rail, we had transit, that sort of thing. So there was a lot to talk about, and there were a lot of zoning changes and upzoning. And there was a need for it because the housing, the holding capacity indicated that we were not going to be able to support the 20-year growth projections under current zoning. So there was a need to increase zoning in some areas. Region 6, by the framework set by Plan 2040, is that overall the region is meant to be rural, low density, and maintained that way. So, and this is why I was saying from the beginning that I don't anticipate a whole lot of upzoning in the very, center of Crownsville. That would kind of be outside of the vision as council adopted it with Plan 2040. So, but this is one area because it's already within the town center that I think.
I mean, it seems like if there's
Change.
ever a giveaway, this is it, right? It's like between the water tower, it seems ridiculous to put single family houses there.
Need a vote or a consensus again, or should
I'd
we
like a
stay with the last
yeah.
time? I think it'll still be pretty mixed, but I don't mind having it. I didn't get to vote last time, so I'm kind of excited. I missed it last.
And my question here, I mean, unless you all want to reopen the zoning question, my question is just the region boundary
Sure.
right now.
Only
We've registered well, the zoning is a little bit late because it's going out to public review on Monday, and we can revisit it in August, but just for the change in the boundary here.
So the voters whether to accept
Our
Your
recommendation to put
recommendation
this
to-
in Region 7.
All in favor of accepting the change the boundary, put that in Region 7? Okay, opposed?
Okay. But rest assured, I'm gonna bring this conversation
Yeah.
up to you. And, when we have these with the power state. And then the other areas where we talked about region boundary changes, the very north of the region where Veterans Highway meets, where General's Highway meets up with Veterans Highway, there are two properties that are kind of wedged between, like 3 properties, that might be a third one. That are kind of wedged between Veterans Highway and 97. It makes sense to us to pull these into Region 6. So that is our recommendation, pull them out of Region 3, pull them into Region 6. Do we consensus on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that would be so.
And this is the one that I think we heard from folks in the public already that we're interested in not sending these areas that I've outlined in yellow here are currently zoned, they have commercial zoning currently. So there's one small piece of this larger property here. We did some zoning research. That was an intentional split zone that goes back to, I think, comprehensive zoning back in the 1980s. And so hence that remains commercial right up against Route 3. And then these properties here that are also owned by the same owner along the front of Route 3 here. So our recommendation was to put all 3 of those commercial areas that are along Route 3 into Region 5 so that planning along the Route 3 corridor would happen, all at the same time. I know there was some consternation about particularly this one. How do we feel about
You
these?
mean the farthest, the one in the south?
At Millersville Road and
Oh,
Route
that one.
3.
Okay.
But I think big issue was with upzoning, not so much with what region it was in. I mean, I guess it sounds like it's similar to the.
There were some comments about concerns about putting it in Region 5 too.
That they might.
I mean, if
But-
you
Yes,
just keep saying Region 6 is rural, but you just keep making Region 6 smaller, like, it's, that's what I feel like you're doing on both ends.
But putting commercially zoned properties with the rest of the commercially zoned properties seems.
But this
Like,
is
yeah.
one where the minute notes from last time said, you know, our group recommends the county look at purchasing this. Again, I think it was a mistake to make it C1 in the first place. It's a farmhouse, it's historic, it's a trail. You've gotten a lot of public comment about it, saying that you don't want it commercial, and you will be getting public comment about the other spot too, but I'm just, I mean,
I think 90% of the comments came from Region 5.
Right,
So-
I was gonna say, if
That's
you
why I think
remember
it
when
should
we
be
were in
Region
here
5.
meeting with Region 5, like, those guys were fired up, like, we didn't, none of us said a word. all night long.
comments
I'm
about.
not gonna argue with the
specific
Region
Right,
5
right,
people.
I'm just saying, like, moving that top property to region, or whatever area to Region 5 is not forfeiting the space, right? The Region 5 people are obviously like super invested in what's happening on Route 3, like, more so than we were when we had that meeting. So I, you know, it's not an I don't look at this as like an abdication of responsibility. It's already commercial, it's already up there, and it's going to a group of people that we know share our concerns about that stretch of
I'm
road. I
curious,
think.
the big conversation that we had was it last month on the property up there and the zoning, wasn't that this space?
It was one of the
This
big
area?
right downtown.
They really were upset that it was potentially going to change zoning, right?
Just thought it was
Well,
gonna
there was-
change.
there was
Right.
concern about upzoning, but we did also get comments from people who live in, you know, in this area along Millersville Road. There were some who expressly also were concerned with the idea of this moving into Region 5 and not being in Region 6. I think there was some sense that they would lose some potential control if you're a resident of one region.
Because there
but
is no
it's-
barrier there. There's nothing that, I mean, right now, it's commercial or it's residential, I mean, commercial or it's rural.
Both these
Right.
sites, both the sites here and the other one, no matter what they're zoned now or what overlay they're in, they're currently, the existing conditions are not commercial, they're not developed. So until they are, then the next time, okay, we already lost, it turned into a Walmart, now put it in Region 5. I don't want it anymore, but while it's still a farmhouse, while it's still woods, you know, I wanna keep what we have. And hope that it'll get changed back to what I like.
Is the property still owned by the Greer family or has it been transferred? Like I see that big sign that says for lease or purchase on that corner. So I'm wondering, is it already owned by like an LLC or something? Is there any way to downsize that? Cause that's like right there at that horrible intersection. So many people have been T-boned, what have you.
I know we had, you know, we
I
weighed
would
in on
really
this
like to see that stay.
big time last time. I know the issue of whether it is or isn't zoned a certain way. I mean, we've already gone over that. This is just the, should it be in Region 5 or Region 6?
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean,
It's an LLC that owns these two properties.
so there's really no stopping it from.
And there's
If
a,
the Greers put it in an LLC, then they can sell.
there's a
it.
zoning change application in as well. So again, this is one that will have an opportunity for, or a call out for public comment.
Notices will be sent to adjacent property owners regardless of what region they're in, right?
Mhm.
Is there an interpretation if we have voted against the increase in zoning, but then we also vote for moving it to another region? Does that send a mixed message?
Well, that's what I'm clarifying now.
But
We have you all on
does
record.
Does council look at that comprehensively like that? I mean, is that,
I don't think so. I mean, maybe I can only speak for myself. I mean, everybody would look at it differently. I don't think it matters if this is in Region 5 or Region 6. But I've heard from and I understand neighbors who live particularly along this road here. The sense that they would miss out on future region planning efforts if they're in this region and this is in a different region. I don't think that would be the case. I think anybody in the county can weigh in on any region plan and any issue that they have. I'm sorry.
It's hard to be aware of it if you're in one region and the discussion's going on. In
Yeah.
another region.
And so I understand that. I think from a broader planning perspective, though, I do think corridor planning should be done, all along the corridor and I would personally support all of the commercial areas being planned for in one go. That's, I think,
Is it?
my
you
perspective.
look at the part south of the top yellow box. And, the top yellow box that you're thinking about transferring is still very open and farm and
Mhm.
not developed. While the other two yellow boxes that you've also highlighted, they've already been developed.
This is undeveloped. This is a
Oh,
very
okay.
small, narrow
Alright.
piece, but
But
this
it's
has,
still in
yes.
in a space where it's been.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm thinking is it possible to agree to the lower two and leave the top one in
Okay.
Region 6?
Yeah.
Because that
This is why I
one,
wanted to have this
Yeah,
You're not
conversation.
the mall one, but you care about.
well, it's because the other one
Well,
already
it-
has that barrier, just in my.
Yeah,
to me,
like,
but-
we're I'm so sympathetic
Yes.
to how you feel, because like, I have watched, like you, I grew up right here, I have watched development in this area totally outpace the county's ability to keep up with what's happening around here. Like, it's bonkers how different things are, and the infrastructure has not kept pace to match. I just said to Beatrice, something that was important to me on the town center one is that you have those homes right there, right next to it, and you have the homes right around the corner that we just gave to we just moved to Region 7. Those people live adjacent to that and we don't, right? Like, Joel lives the closest to it and he's like, I got my water tower, I got my neighborhood, like the fort is built. Those people now down there by Safeway, they get a chance to weigh in on those 3 properties. But applying that same logic up here, I think Melissa's point is a good one. The people that are impacted by how that space gets planned and used are the ones living on the right-hand side of the picture. So like, totally sympathetic, but I think Melissa's got a good point in that there is I think, an ability to see these two things as different, because in one, the people that are affected by the mall, the people that are affected by the changes there are right there in Region 7. Here, the people that are affected by these changes are right here in Region 6. Oh, I'm sure we are. Sure we are, but yeah, it's, like I said, the infrastructure has not kept pace with development in this county.
And I
for
guess
40
here,
years.
I'm like, well, your argument for the town center, oh, it's part of the overlay, but it's still legally zoned R2 or whatever. This is already zoned C something, so. Who
Yeah.
cares, I guess, but.
My thought on this one is that the people in Region 6 will hear about any development changes through the development process, because they'll get notification, they'll see the signs. And it's not like it's gonna happen in a, completely quiet vacuum. There's gonna be outrage if anybody ever tries to zone this property. Nobody's gonna not hear about it. And if the people in Region 5 were any less upset about development at this intersection, I would think, oh, maybe we want to keep it to ourselves. But
But it got,
nobody's gonna say fewer things about development on this corner in Region 5. They're gonna have just as much, if not more, to say against it than we are.
well, how did it get up zone last time? Cause I feel like we all spoke out again and spit last time and it's still turned.
If that's, at a county level, that doesn't really matter what region it's in, somebody's gonna decide that.
But just a question, Patrick, for clarification. When did the county started doing these more open meetings? In terms of like just being more kind of like at least asking for input from the community, because that would tell a lot about the opportunity for like moving forward rather than what happened in the past. Because one of the things that I see is like a lot of these rezonings, probably there was like absolutely no public comment. They were just
But this
decisions.
one had public comment and it's still, council still.
But again, it's like council is the one that will make the decision. We will just make recommendations as a public is, I would say like, now that I know this process, I'm more encouraged to be more informed. I will, talk to other people that I know locally. And I think that the benefit of this process is to really think about the concept of community hubs. Is like the community hub concept should be also in terms of like the decision makers for communities and parcels that will impact their livelihood, like literally next door. Yes, I don't like traffic. I see like incredibly amount of cars every time that we go through General's Highway, every day more and more. Yes, but I don't live in those apartments that will eventually be heavily impacted by construction, by a different kind of completely different change of character. I will prefer that the decision stays with those folks that, yes, will be adjacent, but at least that they are informed. So that will be kind of like, just my perspective.
I mean, I guess both of these are on the edge though, so we're both adjacent.
How would people feel if we took that top part and left it in region 6 and did the bottom 2 in region 5?
I will agree.
Would we be okay with that?
Do we vote on it?
I'm not opposed to it tonight to vote against it, so she.
What is the little part? I don't understand that one. Is that like the red line currently goes like weird around it or
Yes,
something?
red
Middle
line
one,
is weird.
this one,
Yeah,
this is part of this larger
okay.
parcel here, but it is split zoned and that has, I think, C 1 or 2 right now. I don't have the map up in front of me right now. And that was a specific intentional council split back in, I think, the 1980s. I don't have my notes in front of me, but we had done some research on that because I asked that question too.
Melissa, do you want to make it formal?
I will make a formal motion that we agree to moving the bottom 2 into region 5. Correct, region 5? And that the top yellow box remain in region 6.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Southern 2 properties to move to route region 5, the top corner of Millersville Road and Route 3 to stay in region 6. All in favor? All opposed?
I'm abstaining, so I wasn't here for the conversation. I feel like I shouldn't vote.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that discussion. That was the clarity that I wanted. Okay. Other areas to talk about, I don't necessarily have graphics for anything. I do want to kind of wrap our conversation though, after we talk about any other areas within the region plan. I want to kind of revisit the vision statement and just make sure that it still represents what we want it to represent as the vision for the region. In terms of other comments that we got from folks, I think most of them we can incorporate with folks. We took your point you just brought up again about the comment about stormwater management. I think we can
Tone it down a little.
revise and look through and make sure that we're emphasizing that more for any redevelopment that happens, that it's not about in wooded or green areas. The boundaries we talked about. I do want to talk about the community hubs. So among the comments that I got, it seemed like several of you were comfortable with the description of the community hubs as it's drafted now. How do we feel about that? Do we feel like that captures well what we're looking to say about those areas that are already commercially zoned?
I read that and for Jasmine's sake, so she doesn't think I disagree with her and everything. I did agree with Jasmine's comment that it does seem like there are too many descriptions of hubs, I always thought, I was thinking it started off as just, you know, community hubs, there was one description and now there's three of them, and I do think it could kind of overcomplicate what exactly we're trying to do. I do see there are differences between the ones on General's Highway and the ones closer to 97, but not exactly sure how best to trim down the.
So the,
Like, why is there three?
so the reason that came about, we talked about the three on General's Highway. I feel like that's one character, and I want to be very careful about how we talk about those. And then I think we had lumped all three of the others together, and I believe it was you, Graham, that had said you felt like the one here at the corner of Millersville Road and Route 3 feels different than the other three. So that kind of
We could have just trimmed it down to two. We didn't. Oh, gosh, squandered that opportunity.
Can't go back.
Can we
voted?
Yeah, revote.
Sorry, Patrick. Go
Well,
ahead.
no, so I think that was why I sort of tried to pull that out and describe it separately. So I guess my question is, should that even be should this corner be a community hub at all? I think it's an opportunity to talk about kind of what do we want in relation to the South Shore Trail that's gonna be punching through there. I think it would serve us well to describe a vision for these areas. So that is my intent with these community hubs. I think I look in the Crownsville area and I see these as, I don't want future development to get out of hand. I think I understand that there's a vision for maintaining rural, low scale development, and that's what I'm trying to capture. Including here, which does feel different than what's on General's Highway, and that's what I was trying to get at.
I thought this one was part of the critical corridor, or can you explain what that is? Does that mean like,
That's a development policy area. It's kind of a broad policy designation that is,
and does that mean development, commercial development, or does that mean efficient traffic through? What does it mean?
it recognizes that, that it is located on a large transportation corridor. There are opportunities and needs for, better multimodal connections and those sorts of things. And I think that, I don't have the definition in front of me. I think it does talk about potential for mixed use and such. So
It's a policy-
maybe, I'm sorry, go
It's a
ahead.
policy overlay, not like the town center overlay, or is it?
Which is, but that, yeah,
Or
the
they're
town
both
center is the
the same
zoning, is the zoning
Overlay.
overlay. So it has those legal,
And this is,
regulatory.
but the transit one is not a zoning overlay.
the corridor, the
Or-
critical corridor is just a policy. It's a broad policy area, yeah. But maybe that is something we should talk about. Should we pull that out of the critical corridor,
Yes.
policy area?
I think what you said about multimodal, I mean, I'm okay with pulling it out of the critical corridor thing, but maybe the vision for that area is to support multimodal transportation options. Like the trail's right there, maybe something that supports the trail, or, a bike shop or a little like cafe where you could stop along the trail and get something.
I think that's how you label it, right? Multimodal corridor. Multimodal crossroads.
Multimodal crossroads,
You have multimodal, you have local crossroads, and we have connecting corridor. But when I read local crossroads, it also talks about enhanced multimodal connectivity. I'm trying to understand why, we have three of these. If we're gonna make the local crossroads hubs also a multimodal connectivity hub, I'm confused.
Well, I guess multimodal in this case just means bike, speed, cars, because we don't have any other modes that would intersect with any of these hubs.
that's what I envisioned for the ones along General's Highway, I
Right.
think. And tried to describe connections to the surrounding neighborhoods. People should be able to bike there. I don't know that I envisioned sidewalks from neighborhoods, not in a rural area like Collinsville, but are there trails like South Shore Trail, like connect it through, have connections from those hubs to the South Shore Trail.
And that's.
In that
local-
sense, the same for this
But what
this
you just
area.
described, is that local?
That's the
cross-
local. local crossroads, yeah.
I
The
guess,
three on General's
I
Highway.
guess when I think about like the local LC one, and maybe I'm wrong, but where I think I see LC one, if it's going to be multimodal, you're gonna end up having to create some type of way for the people to get from South Shore Trail, which is on the west side of General's Highway, over to the LC one that is on the east side of General's Highway. So to me, those don't really fit, at least in LC one.
Yeah, I see that point.
I don't, LC 2 and 3 are down where the South Shore Trail comes over and is on the same side of the street.
So-
But LC 1 doesn't fit that. And that's why I'm kind of struggling with.
But there are neighborhoods around it, and are there opportunities for bike lanes or wider shoulders that can connect people to that one?
But isn't that the point of the South Shore Trail?
Well, where it exists, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna be coming right past all of these. So
Yes.
we need more bike lanes when we're gonna have South Shore Trail that's coming in that exact same route.
So the update to the bike ped master plan is called Walk, Roll, and Arundel. It includes a whole slew of lower priority connections into the neighborhoods off of the South Shore Trail. And those are identified in those maps, and so that this would support that adopted vision, and you know, I think, again, I think the vision would be for those along General's Highway, all of these really to serve the surrounding local community, not to be a destination for people outside of Crownsville, but into the area.
You just worry about
Right.
having too much bike pedestrian stuff going
Okay.
on there.
Well,
When you have so much traffic that you add then tons, another bike lane, you add more,
mhm.
in addition to South Shore, I'm just concerned.
If the only infrastructure you provide is for cars, all you get is cars. If you don't provide trails and sidewalks, then people are trapped.
I know, I guess
And
what I'm
that's
saying
where
is
we are right
that was
now.
the whole purpose of the South Shore Trail, is to make it so. they're not
Yeah,
trapped.
but the South Shore Trail is one element in a bike network.
Yeah, it's not a Odenton to Annapolis trail, it's a trail to connect everybody in
Yeah.
between to all the places.
It's not everything is meant to connect to the South Shore Trail.
Mhm.
There need to be other ways for people to get from Arden to somewhere, from Epping Forest to somewhere, from Rolling Knolls to somewhere. They're not all gonna wind up, Rolling Knolls is across the street from South Shore. It's very hard to get there. So we need a lot of ways to get places, and it's not just one bike trail, it's an entire network we have to build.
And one of the ways I think you reduce traffic at Harold Harbor and General's Highway, which is what we're talking about now, is like slow things down,
Mhm.
which is counterintuitive, but you slow things down and then suddenly everybody trying to get from Annapolis to Odenton, their Google's not gonna take them through
Right,
that
that's
anymore.
true.
And I'm on board with the three different designations, they make sense to me, because at least to me, when you think of those three on General's Highway, I think we would all kind of want them to look similar to one another. You would wanna be able, for the people in those neighborhoods, to get to them, to shop around, do their stuff, buy their bean rush, and then, or their Dunkin'.
No, Dunkin'.
Steve,
man.
It's happening.
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah, right, you wanna be able to get there. The one up at Gina's Cantina, like, neighborhoods are not gonna be biking and walking to that, people are gonna drive to Gina's, people are gonna drive to whatever. The one down at the other end, like Crownsville Road, that's more of like a tweener, and then the Millersville one, right, like that's,
It's not all.
it doesn't fit neatly into
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
one, but it's, if
But I
you had to
guess-
choose, I'd say
Yeah.
more industrial down there, it's probably closer to
True.
Gina's
Yeah.
than Bean Rush.
Yeah.
And then, but you can, I see a difference, and then Millersville obviously is like its own animal
Yeah.
Mhm.
that I think needs to be,
What about the 450 one? Cause to me, that's still
That's-
pretty small.
that's the one I mean, like,
Yeah.
You made that one for.
Where it's
the-
like in between kind of.
Tweener.
yeah, that's why I think it's a tweeter. Because it's like, it's got those industrial guys right to the south side of it, it's got the rock.
It's got the neighborhood.
Place or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And also, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, with like the purpose of designating these places is to like set
like help set policy and like point to this and be like, oh, well, we can't do X, Y, Z at this place. This is a local
At a
community.
minimum,
hub."
I want something when we have a development review come through. I want something that I can point to in this region plan that says, what you're proposing in this area does
Doesn't fit,
not
right,
meet
and if you lump them all together, then whatever they do at Millersville Road,
Yeah.
they can point to
Say-
Harold Harbor and General's Highway and say, oh, you classified these as,
Okay.
So
big
what are the two
connectors, BCs, and so you gotta do the same.
What is
Lo-
Now-
Local,
wait, that's
commercial,
first.
and multi.
Thank you, because I was trying to understand.
Local crossroads,
local
multimodal and connecting.
What if we put the one at Millersville into Region 5 and then?
Made that joke already.
I'm gonna try to sneak that, but.
The chair wasn't wrong, so.
Yes, it needs to be.
Anyway,
Sorry.
All that to say is, I see.
But it's.
Sorry, Grant.
No, it's okay.
Any different, like, town center zonings, is there, that are, could go along with this, like, is there any
It's not a-
zoning that, I know it's a policy, but is it like, what difference is it gonna make?
I think preserving the gradation allows future versions of these things to say, you can't put a, Walmart at Harold Harbor and General's Highway, because that's a local community hub, and we don't want that there. Put it out at somewhere else, right? You can't put a, you can't put a you could say you can't put a Walmart at Millersville Road, because that's a multimodal, right? And Walmart eats up your ability to do multi-mode. It gives you the fuel you need to like shape the development in those areas the way that we hope it will be shaped.
In the
After the Dunkin'.
What's the Dunkin'?
In the draft report, they lay out a pretty good idea of how that would work. They have, at a local crossroads hubs, the vision says this is what it should look like. The scale says it should be no bigger than this. The compatible use section says it should have these type of uses.
Yeah.
The landscape section says it should provide these additional enhancements.
No
So-
drive-through, blah, 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 right? Like, yeah, I think, to me, the three different bins make sense. And I understand that it's a tool we use to focus development at each of these places in the way that serves us the best, I think.
Your description of LC2, the General's Highway at Harold Harbor.
Mhm.
It came across to me, and maybe it's just the way I was reading it, that yes, we're getting Dunkin' Donuts and the other two, whatever they are, on that corner. But I almost got that we turned down all the development that was gonna be going north of that corner. We turned down the other, the requests for changing those development. And the way I read the paragraphs on LC2, it makes it seem like we're gonna have a lot more development at that area. And that made me a little uncomfortable.
Was it the several of the properties of commercial zoning are undeveloped or have potential for additional development? Is that your
Yeah.
concern?
I agree with that.
And then additionally, master planning is underway. We're gonna do all of
That's
this,
the
and then
part.
there's gonna be, stuff short. It seemed like all of a sudden this corner that had the two gas stations and the bank and Dunkin' Donuts and whatever the other two tenants are there. And that's where I thought we said, okay, we're stopping there. But when I read this description, it made it seem like it was going to be that corner and then going north, it was gonna be, let's have a lot more because we'll have South Shore Trail and Park there. We're gonna develop all of this, and it just struck me as it seemed a lot more development focused rather than, yes, we have this, but that's where we're keeping it. It's gonna stay local and small. It's not going
Yeah,
to be.
I wonder if, well, sorry, I'm sucking
No,
up
go
all the
ahead.
oxygen, I apologize. I wonder if there's a way to reword that to say that like the driving force for what we want to see happen at that intersection is the South Shore Trail and South Shore Park. And if development is happening that is like conducive to the community use of that space, like that's what we like, right?
But- North of Harold Harbor, not south of Harold Harbor.
Yeah, within the
Zoning.
established
Yeah.
zones that are already
Yeah.
there,
Yes.
so.
Yep.
We don't wanna see more gas stations pop up, but
Right,
if
and we
something
don't want
comes
to
up
see
that,
it, we talked about it not coming
we don't want
south
to
of
go
Harold
further,
Harbor.
right,
We talked about it going north of Harold Harbor.
or not at all.
Yes, or not at all, yeah,
It's
exactly.
in the company already.
Yes,
Or-
yeah.
I think we captured that too in, the zoning recommendation.
But it just, that's not how I read this
Okay.
these paragraphs
What if-
here.
What if I delete several of the
Have
properties with
potential.
commercial zoning or
Yeah.
undeveloped and have potential for, I can
Potential,
delete
I
that
think.
whole sentence.
Yeah,
Don't
but
even give them a
you could
hint.
also, you could
Yeah,
also
yeah.
specify that it's for things that are north of Harold
Okay.
Harbor as opposed to General's Highway and
Okay.
Harold Harbor and this whole area.
Yeah.
Because that would be the
Does the committee, do we all feel,
I'm
do
good
we
with
all
that.
agree with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
thing.
Is there anything else on this community hubs?
I want
Okay.
speed bumps on
Inset.
Sunrise Beach Road.
I think I'm more okay with the three types than I was at the beginning, but I happily hear other comments that we haven't already heard.
How does everybody feel about the paragraph under connecting corridor hubs that says scale and uses?
Correct, just for everybody's benefit, commercial and non-residential uses in line with proximity and growth along commercial corridors. Redevelopment should maintain compatible height and scale with surrounding areas and complement existing uses.
I mean, that kind of says to me, okay, if I want to develop south of here or out, just right next to one of these connecting corridor hubs, I can propose something that is, a 4-story residential. And because there is one in one of these hubs. Or office space type thing. I don't know, it just struck me as scale and uses sounded more pro-development than keeping the scale small and not going beyond the current footprints.
Okay,
So this is the general said veterans.
Yeah.
Crownsville. with
Well,
Defense
the
Highway.
connecting the corridor hubs, which are the
That's
LCs
just
1,
these
2,
two.
3.
Yeah,
And if we're talking about how we're going to connect those three, I guess the idea of connecting those three with commercial and non-residential uses bothered me. Because I wouldn't think that's how we want to connect those three. Do you know
I
what I
thought
mean?
you just read the connecting corridor hubs, which is the one
it's
at
only those two, the
The-
Veterans
yeah.
Highway one and
Defense Highway and then.
Defense Highway.
up at 450.
This one, the Defense Highway.
Meaning,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I read it to mean
Okay.
those are hubs on connecting corridors.
Okay.
They are not hubs that are connecting.
Right.
Down the,
Okay,
down the
thank you,
street.
thank
Yeah.
you. I was misreading it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And while what my opinion about the scale was along the LCs that are along General's Highway, there is a prescription of no higher than, this
Yes.
amount of stories.
Right.
But in, the north and the south end, it's a little more flexible, which I think is fine, the tweener areas, if you will. Compatible gives you a little bit more flexibility than saying you cannot be any taller than X, and I think that's appropriate for those two specific areas.
Thanks.
I find that where it is, yeah.
I appreciate that.
we feel comfortable for the moment. What I would like to do is maybe take some of the comments that we've had tonight and that we received, and we can incorporate some changes and kind of send this back out to you all with the maps, with the tables that weren't in there before, so that you all can have a more complete version of this to approve at our August meeting. Does that sound like a reasonable plan?
When will so then the plan will go out to public till after that, the plan itself?
It'll go when this goes to the planning advisory board, yeah.
So like in fall, so.
Yeah, fall, September. Right. There was a comment about, mention of the public feedback by the county to potentially, acquire the corner of Millersville Road, Route 3 to protect it from development. We can add a note in there about that. And we still have more public comment to come, so we'll see what else comes. That will, I'm sure, adjust some of the rest of this plan as well, some areas. I think those are the main things. I mean, is there anything else that you all as a group, you've looked through this, is there anything else you wanna kind of bring up or make a comment on at this point?
I mentioned in my comments in regards to the audience for the document, if there was any executive summary at the end that summarized and prioritized the implementation metrics.
Yeah, we haven't done it, you're talking about before, like in the implementation chapter?
Yeah, it seemed very, I mean, it was familiar to us, but depending on the audience for this document,
Mhm.
it seemed like that could be summarized in terms of what the priorities for the changes were. And any summary even on funding that was already budgeted or not outstanding issues, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think that's not a bad idea at all, and I think we can probably add some things somewhere, either within the implementation section or maybe embed within the text of each of the 4 main chapters, what the key priorities are. And so this is where I'd like to hear from you all. What are the key priorities of the region? I mean, the overarching that I am hearing pretty clearly is maintaining a lower density and rural character. But beyond that, I mean, I think you're talking about more specifically within the strategies. Or,
There were just so many in that implementation section, that felt like they could be summarized by priority.
Here's even the matrix, right? The implementation matrix, yeah, with all the codes and that document, yes, that's.
Yeah. Cause that's
That's a big, that's all the way at the
And
end.
is that just directly taken from 2040?
Mhm.
Like, do we need to just pick
Yes.
ones that apply to our region, or you already did that?
are you talking about these strategies
Yes.
here?
The
These are all
matrix.
specific to this plan. There's one, for instance, this one is drafted in a way that would apply countywide, so it will be a countywide strategy, but all of the others are specific to Region 6. So I think, I don't know, maybe we should,
I didn't even read them.
okay. Let's see, maybe what we can do is find a way to survey you all as a group and get these priorities between now and the August meeting, and then just confirm it for the public record at the next meeting.
That's nice.
And let me give some thought to how to kind of work it into the plan, whether it's something that is within each section, like the natural environment, key priorities for the region are this and this and that. And then in built environment, whatever. And does that sound like
Yeah, I
Plan.
just reading it, it was really long and.
Yes. There are so many
It's a
of
good
them
comment.
that be like, oh my God.
Yeah,
This to me would be like, if we haven't been living it.
I think it would help too, well, it would help everybody, the decision makers, the council, when they're putting budgets together and agencies and such, it helps to have that very clearly.
Were you looking for like a near, mid, far term, like
We have
everything?
that.
Well, they already
That's
have it
on
on
there.
it, short term, midterm, and long term, but to me, you know, I read so many short terms and I'm going,
Yeah,
oh my
that's the
God, are we
priority.
already doing all that?
You want, and I'm almost thinking like if, I don't know, say this one mentions projects in 4 different areas, you know, is there one that's a key priority? Because it's a priority right now. So why don't I find a way to kind of survey you all, get your input on that, and then let's confirm it at the August 12th meeting. Does that sound like a good plan? Because I think we could be here till
Have all the
midnight,
short
but,
terms put together. And then all the midterms and long terms, so that everybody already knows, these are the short term ones that are happening really quickly, so you better focus.
But I think that what might be a little bit more helpful, because I mean, you can have priority 1 that is long term versus you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter like the time, it's more about what matters to us as a group. But also, I think that it would be interesting, and again, this is like probably an exercise that might help us to make the prioritization in terms of like, you know, you can do a 4 quadrant matrix where it says like, you know, high effort, low effort, kind of like high priority, low priority. So that would pretty much you can map out a lot of stuff. There's ways that we can collectively be more efficient in terms of, you know, which are the priorities that I individually think that are the best for the region based on our discussions, but probably might be completely different from other community
that's true.
members. And then we'll have one priority that has 2 votes, and then one that has 1, and so it might be scattered, but I would say it's almost selecting the ones that are almost in a little band. And then those are priority for the majority. Let's give, which are the, high, low, mid, kind of our 1, 2, 3 prioritization, regardless of the time frame. Because I think the
Yeah.
time frame is something that we cannot control. There are some that are definitely a priority for me, but it will take a long term to implement, but I still is a priority. Versus,
top 3.
yeah, the top 3. Yeah, that could be a good exercise too.
Yeah.
Which are your top
Yeah.
3 for each section, and then collectively we vote.
I think one
on the
caveat,
survey.
yeah, one caveat too, I would also bring up is that these strategies add to and don't repeat what's in Plan 2040. So there are, I think it's easy to look at this and think, well, there are big gaps in here, and
Yeah.
it's because some of them are covered by broad Plan 2040. So it could be that something that is a priority may not be in this list, but it is still a priority for the region that is supported by strategies in Plan 2040. I don't know how to deal with that, but let me think about it and we'll
The
let's
short,
come back to you.
short term, midterm, is that based at all on priority, or is that on how long it would take?
How, I think it's more of an
Just
attempt to
easy.
get at what we think it would take in terms of how long.
Just listening to the conversation that we've had past few meetings and reading through all of this, and then thinking about the different conversations we had about public involvement. I started wondering, nowhere in this document do we tell people how to be more aware, or how to get their voice heard, or how to pay more attention, or who to contact about what. If you have more questions or specific questions about different areas. And I was thinking somewhere in here, maybe even in the beginning, if you want to say, if you want to get involved, start going to these websites and looking at them, or put your name on this list to be informed, or, whatever it might be. But if we talk, there are times I've gone to some of my neighbors and I go, God, I didn't even know that was going on.
Yeah.
I've been amazed that over the past 2 weeks, I have shared the Crownsville Hospital plan with 10 people that had never even heard that it was already out. And I'm going, oh my, so all I can think of is there seems to be a dearth of information for people that obviously want to know what's going on, but I don't know what's missing. But maybe if we're going to put something like this out there, give
Yeah.
them some ways to get involved.
Or maybe
be in
even
contact.
a section about how development works, like the Dunkin' Donuts as an example. I know a lot of people upset about it, but I'm just like, it's too late.
Yeah.
But like, to prevent that, what could we have done, if anything? Like,
Mhm.
I know there's like a subdivision website and, there's meetings for that, but maybe just a little paragraph on like how to be involved.
Mhm. And
As this plan comes to life, what to expect. Like, you'll get a letter if you live nearby, but otherwise you can go to this website and see all pending applications.
I mean, I find it amazing that if you don't live nearby, you won't know that.
It's just surprising. Stuart Pittman puts out a newsletter, and there are a lot of useful links in there. I don't know if the next county executive will be so transparent, forthcoming with a lot of things. I found it a very useful resource. It's how I find out about a lot of things. It just comes dropped right into my email. So just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm sure he'd love to have his name on that, somewhere in the plan.
Oh,
But you
I'm sure.
Say,
But,
add your name to that newsletter.
But I think we can work on that. So let me see if I can work that in and let y'all.
Yeah, because there's like, on page 13 is like, there's a little bit of our community, our voice. It pretty much describes a public involvement, but it's very, it's not a call to action. It's more like informational only, and then very broad. It says that, there's a stakeholder advisory committee, the resolution of the council to provide these types of opportunities. But I see your point, Melissa, and it will be great to say, like, if you want to, almost like a disclosure, if you want to stay involved, do this or go here.
And
join,
Yeah,
vote.
and you don't have to go physically anywhere. Some of these
Yeah.
things are broadcast on TV.
Yeah.
Right, so it was great. They were, I was struggling with their, ordinances on Airbnb and I was able to comment, get my messages out to Rodney in advance. She was aware and as many people were concerned about what was happening, you could see the whole hearing unfold in front of you. And comment, so. That's convenient, because, a lot of people, like seniors, for example, or whatever, can't really get out. They don't know where to park, they don't know where to go. So, yeah, I'd like to see more of that virtual kind of stuff. I think it makes it more accessible generally.
Exactly.
Are there any other general comments on the plan or areas that we should dive into a little bit deeper at this point?
Did you say you wanted to relook at the vision statement or?
That's right there.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, we did have one comment on the
Yeah,
vision statement.
that was
Well,
fine.
actually, two comments, but yeah. Does this still represent what we want?
I was just nervous about the essential services, like, is that to? Like, going back to like the hub language, well, like, I'm an essential, so I need to build a hospital right here because that's an essential service. Like, should it just be
or
community services? or
Community centered.
Services, I don't know.
Sure, community focused.
Community services. But then do we have?
Everything.
Yeah, community services could be a
hospital.
Yeah, yeah.
When I
Don't
know.
forget that's the vision statement, so we're not,
Local-
so not
Local
implementing any
community
policy.
services. Like the semantics are kind of perplexing.
I don't know. maybe
Why don't
we'll
we
take
just
it.
not define it, just
Say
say development
services.
would be focused within revitalized business hubs.
Okay.
But you're still trying to.
Talk about that.
Oh, yeah, you're
You
right.
want it to be.
Good point. Thank you.
focused on something.
So raise that comment.
It could be like that, services, how to say, services to.
Businesses focused on
Businesses.
serving the community.
Or what
like
about
Organizations.
organizations,
I thought cause our main thing, I thought we wanted like local businesses, so what
Yeah.
about local businesses are supported by focusing development within revitalized hub? I don't know.
What about?
Could these local businesses providing essential services?
Yeah, or just
That's what I would say.
services, local, like, I think local businesses is what we wanted to emphasize, but I feel like essential services is emphasized, so I was just trying to. But maybe I'm.
well, the other thing that might kind of encompass a lot of like our sentiment is will be limited development or limiting,
so-
I mean,
Local businesses providing community
Services.
centered services, if that's the word you want.
Supportive.
Focused and existing. hubs,
Focus.
Right?
Whatever the development part, we're saying limited development, focused development and revitalized hubs allows local businesses to provide community services or something. Or
That's services. Like that.
yeah, I don't know how to.
Or businesses focused on services, serving community needs.
Maybe think
Or
on
community, whatever.
I'm gonna have food banks.
Businesses focused on, or businesses.
Maybe hospitals, yeah, they're like, come up with them, project plan.
We continue to support local businesses within the
revitalized local
footprint of
business hubs.
within the footprint of revitalized
Local business. hubs.
community hubs or whatever you
Well,
call
yeah,
them.
well,
you know, one thing that we're missing in our vision statement, which is pretty much is in kind of like it's subtle, but it's like our goal, the reason why we're here, because we want to keep the rural character of the region, and we don't even say that.
That's the first sentence.
But it's like, it's natural areas, but it doesn't say the
The
character of the region. I mean, if you tell me that, someone else can come and say like, oh, for me, the character of the region is going to be development and.
How about Region 6?
Yeah.
Enjoys its rural character.
Yes.
By protecting and enhancing natural areas, trail network, historic crossroads.
That's fine. That sounds like a little bit more,
What did I just say?
yes.
To the recording.
Enjoys it.
Enjoys
Rural
its
character.
rural character
Yeah.
Yes.
by protecting.
Yeah,
And
and
enhancing.
enhancing its natural areas.
And
Yeah.
trail network and historic crossroads. Good job. That's.
Because the rural piece covers a lot of the, we want to keep it rural.
Enjoys, and then.
That's one instead of
Right in the
yeah.
first. Enjoys its rural character.
Enjoys and protects its rural character.
Enjoys its rural character
By protecting,
protecting and
enhancing, and
enhancing.
natural areas.
Could we just delete essential in front of services and just say services?
You just get rid
Well,
of
you
that
want
sentence.
community,
Yeah,
did you still want community? No.
We could just, maybe just replace essential with
Community services.
or local community.
So we have
You got
local
local
business.
twice,
hubs,
you don't want local
yeah, community
twice.
services.
Yeah.
Maddie's got us covered.
Thank you.
Good job, Maddie. So the first sentence is now that,
Yeah.
not the
that's good.
highlighted stuff.
I like it.
Yeah,
It's strong.
strong, I like it.
You know, it's like it's protecting.
And delete, do we want to delete essential?
You can change
Yeah.
it to community.
It's not like we have a hospital. Well, around the hospital.
I mean, I think just saying community makes it like something the community wants, so. I don't know.
That community?
Yeah.
That's all- that's community.
Services.
Oh, yeah, Crossroads Community,
Yeah,
community.
community doesn't work.
Okay, how about
Got it.
focus development? Focus development within revitalized local business hubs provides services,
Provides community service.
provides services to its residents.
I don't think we want focus development as a word in there.
But focus means
I know what you
localized,
mean,
right?
but-
And,
I think development is focus.
Do we even want development in
uh,
there?
that's not what you were saying before.
Are we even putting development in there when it seems like all of us are
No.
like, development,
Just take out that
I like development. I'm
Well,
pro development.
yeah.
Keep it in there. Yeah, we've
Alright,
got
then.
areas with
I would,
vacant lots in all of our
Yep.
hubs,
What-
and those should be built
But there's
with businesses and.
Another way of saying
Services
it,
that
right?
help
To
local
say
communities.
revitalize local business hubs will provide
Why can't you just
communities,
say,
community, services.
I think that
and-
what is causing a lot of, kind of like uncomfortable conversations is the word development.
That's what I said.
Yes,
I know. So is there another way?
so
of-
it could be saying services are provided within revitalized local business hub. Services are
Yeah.
provided.
Yeah,
within-
the existing.
Yeah.
it's passive voice, but.
An active voice fan.
But yes,
You can switch it to active.
Yeah, like that, services are provided within revitalized local business.
You're right. It goes from active in the first sentence,
Yeah.
passive. I don't like it.
Well, you can fix
to
that.
be
part.
revitalized local
Yeah.
business hubs provide services.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, revitalize local business hubs,
I like it.
provide.
And then you could add
Community
community
services.
services. if you
Yeah.
like.
Or services to residents, or services to our daughters.
Surrounding neighborhoods.
So, to the community? Or
Provide community resources.
provide services to the community?
Yeah, I like that too.
What's
the fun-
I think revitalize pre-existing local business hubs.
Well, yeah, it has to be.
If it's
it has to be-
revitalized.
If it's revitalized, it implies an existing,
Yeah.
otherwise it's revitalized. Might not be a word.
Provide community services.
Provide services
I don't
to, feel like
surrounding
necessarily,
neighborhoods.
yeah, to the surrounding community,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or to the region.
We don't want it to
no,
go too
because
far,
you
but
really
we
have-
want it
oh,
to
you're
be.
right.
Yeah.
I think that gets at
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
serve, these are not
Like
destinations.
local hubs,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
local hubs, yeah, for the surrounding.
I like
that's
it.
great.
I like
Yeah.
it.
Communities.
That works.
Community.
I'll just comment, you know, like the more recreational park stuff we have, more traffic we have, you know. I mean, I followed someone from up near Davidson who wanted to bring her dog all the way down and walk the dog on South Shore Trail. And it's just the same with Bacon Ridge, that bike. All the cyclists that go in there, and it's an observation that I have, because I live right there on Devil's Elbow.
Right.
Summer Chapel, and I see.
If there were more options for people, you wouldn't have, as a mountain biker, like, there's not that many options, so like, there's people from all up through north of Baltimore that go to Bacon Ridge, cause there's.
Oh, I know, and like,
But I mean-
Mexico, you can't, you
Yes.
gotta jump out of the way.
You have to be, yeah, and it's a little more technical, whereas at Bacon Ridge, it's a little less technical, and so, but it's more options, people wouldn't have to travel so, but I mean, my kids are in Little League Baseball, right? We have to go up to Glen Burnie for games. We have to go to, and we have a lot of people go to Arundel at our home field.
Oh, I
from all
remember
over.
that, right, I had
Yeah.
3 kids, and I had to be replaced at one time.
Yeah,
They were all in.
Do we need a,
but that's a lot of traffic, you're right. It
do we need to
brings-
vote on this,
yeah.
Patrick, or is it
Can I-
consensus or not consensus?
Say one thing about traffic on local roads, local roads has a definition in transportation that. Like River Road, for example, is not a local road, I think it's a collector road.
Yeah.
So if you want less traffic on River Road, for example. That statement's not telling you that.
Well, then why
Local
would you
road
take
covers-
out local and just say traffic on
Regional,
roads?
traffic on
traffic on
regional,
region
traffic on the region's roads or.
Yeah,
national roads.
traffic on Region 6 roads is minimized.
Yeah.
Although 97 does run right through the middle.
A little car
That
road.
fits, she doesn't want it to be expanded, so.
What about back
I wouldn't
roads?
call the highway a.
What about a back road?
It's not a Region 6 road, but
I
a
mean,
back road is a
like,
Region 6
people-
road.
People are complaining about traffic on General Highway, and that's an arterial.
That's
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you wanna minimize traffic on General Highway.
Yeah.
that's
So are we
an arterial.
comfortable with this as a vision statement? We can talk about it a bit more at the August meeting if we
Yeah.
want to, but.
Feels good, we took the development award.
Good. Okay.
Joel's like,
Seemed good to me.
That-
This is fine too.
So that was all that I wanted to bring up tonight. What and if we're done with the conversation about the draft as it stands now, we can incorporate some tweaks, send it back out to you all with more complete with maps, any additional images. If you have more, please send them to us. And we can, get any additional thoughts at the August meeting.
Didn't you say, you were gonna you talked last time you were gonna open the images up for the public to also contribute or something?
The maps?
Yeah, maps or images, I mean, I thought it was like, when we were like, we don't want, like, not everything has to be negative, like, contribute some like positive things to the, like, do you wanna have the public be able to submit like their favorite?
Yeah, I mean, we can receive any images at region6@aacounty.org. If anybody has any that they'd like to maybe submit for consideration for the plan, so.
Just be careful how we're.
Yeah.
do you want a red line of we have like other edits on the.
Yeah,
draft?
please
Okay.
send it, but you're gonna see this again, because
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a vote from you all in August as well, so. But yes, if you have additional comments, please share. So at this point, I think we can close, we do need to take public comment at this point, so, Joel, I'll ask you if you'll open public comment. I know we have one attendee virtually, and I don't know if that person is interested.
Sure. But we'll open it up to public comments. If there's anybody online who wants to speak, you have 2 minutes, so please identify yourself, give us your name and address, and you can go ahead.
Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
We have a raised hand, so Ms. Weller, are you with
Yes,
us?
mine is only going to be very brief. I've gotten several people from,
I've unmuted you, and I can't. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we're not.
Can
we're not
you hear
hearing
me?
anything from you.
John, can you help?
Like the
Is your sound on?
is muted
I don't
at the
think your
bottom.
sound is on. See the little on the bottom right corner? Looks like
That's
your
right,
sound,
messaging, but,
your incoming sound.
okay, give us 1 second. I
May not be me.
think this is gonna echo.
Oh. Ooh, that's annoying.
Is yours? Just 1 second. Can you try now?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Second time that this has happened to us. See if I can. All right. Ms. Weller, can you speak up and I'll shut up and hopefully not have an echo.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, this is gonna be very quick. I have had several people in the Old Millersville Neighborhood Association contact me. The link that you have in the agenda is static. So that I had to type in the whole the whole thing in, which I don't know how many, it's long. And then type in the password. Can you, when you release something, can you make sure that the link is not static and people can easily join?
Yes, ma'am. We'll make sure that we do that. I apologize for that.
But this is the second time it's happened. I know that you've got a lot on your plate and these things happen, but it would be great if you were going back and talking about transparency, and here's an example. That's it.
Got it. I'll mute you just so that we don't have the echo, but thank you. We've noted that, and I'll make sure that we've got a direct link within the agenda. My apologies for that. For future reference too, it is, you can copy and paste the link, but
You couldn't. No,
we'll
it
make
didn't
sure that we
work.
make it as easy as possible and a clickable hyperlink, okay?
It didn't copy, and it did not copy because of the way at least the PDF I have did not allow me to copy and paste.
Okay.
But anyway, enough said on that.
very
It's
much. I
late.
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate what everybody's doing.
Thank you.
Okay. I apologize for the echoey thing there. This is the second time we've had that with this owl, so I apologize for that. But at any rate, okay. With that
Are there other comments?
Just one last request. At the very beginning, you had mentioned a number of dates about the survey and about
Yes,
something. Can you send those to us or just repeat them? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I was gonna close with this. So the public review of the preliminary zoning is gonna be June 16th through July 14th, so we have about a month. We have 2 public drop-ins. I will send all this to you. 2 public drop-ins, June 24th and July 10th. Drop in anytime. Somebody does not need to show up at the start of that and sit down. There's not gonna be a presentation, anything like that. This will be more one-on-one opportunity to answer questions. And then our final SAC meeting will be August 12th here at 5:30. So
Patrick, where is Baldwin Hall?
Are you on vacation?
Baldwin Hall is at the well, across from Baldwin Methodist Church.
It's right at the corner of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Close for anybody that wants to attend.
yeah, it's right in the very center of the region. So fortunately,
Right
we
down.
did find one space within the region. that
It's
we
hard
could-
to get that place. Very
It is.
busy.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a survey?
for us, right?
There's one for you all,
Oh,
SAC, that I wanna get regarding prioritization. The other,
You said there was a survey.
There was
the
something-
third questionnaire has wrapped up. We still need to comb through those comments. And there may be some tweaks to the plan that we want to recommend based on the public comments that we get. We're gonna share those with you as well. So look for that in your email as well.
So the public drop-ins is just for people to come and ask questions about during the public review process.
About the zoning.
Yeah, you
particular.
don't do any in the evening, you only do.
Till 6 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to make it.
Let me, that's a good point.
It's just for people who, like when we have to do hearings, we always make sure there's one in the evening.
Was there one virtual? So then my help.
I think there's a virtual, it's gonna be more how to use the web tool and that kind of thing, not specific to Region 6. So, yeah, let me see if we can adjust that
Yeah,
time.
it's just
No,
a
it's a good comment. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. That's why you're here. Appreciate that.
People also appreciate like daycare stuff, like if they have to bring their kids. Which I know is the hardest part to do, but sometimes that also precludes people from joining, so.
Okay. That's all I have.
Wow.
Any other comments from the committee?
No, thank you for the hard work. It's a lot of putting this document and draft together. It's a lot of.
You all
Thoughtful
volunteered
work.
for this. I got paid for it.
I
Weeks though, a couple of times.
But still, you have to make sure that, capture everything that we have said, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Patrick, you've had to put up with that.
I know, right?
No wonder you were paid.
No, but thank you, team, thank you.
We have a,
I always wonder what the other regional characteristics are like. Is everyone as cool and fun as we are?
we have a motion
He's
to
not
adjourn.
responding.
He did say he went 3 and 7 to
I have a
4.
motion on the floor to adjourn. In a second,
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of adjourning?
Hi, thank you so much.
Now
Thank you.
you can answer it.
Now-